Welcome to Oyster Point and Wyvenley, or as they're known today, Wynnum and Manly. Not only will I be exploring the history of the Wynnum-Manly area, I'll also be taking a look at what is perhaps the most deadliest train station in Queensland. And Manly is kind of like an island. To the west you can see the marshland and the swampy ground, and now to the east you've got Moreton Bay. So in times of high tides and flooding, Manly could almost have become an island.
Wynnum was originally Wynnum, which apparently meant a form of pandanus. However, other sources say that Manly and Lota were known as Narlong. Tom Petrie states this in his memoir Reminiscences.
So that inlet just ahead of me there, that's the beginning of Wynnum Creek. On the other side of the creek over there, you can see those buildings over there, that whole area stretching up further north, that was the site of what seems to have been a permanent Indigenous camp. And on the left side of the bank, on the southern side of it, that's where the first European presence really began here in the Wynnum-Manly area. The Europeans here set up fishing, little fishing operation here, but it was more of an adjunct to the large Indigenous camp on the other side of Wynnum Creek. I was just told by a local that ruined building just across Wynnum Creek used to be an old fish market up until about 10 years ago or something. And also the local Indigenous folk here would take the early European settlers out on fishing trips and little expeditions around the bay. The camp continued up until about 1908, when eventually the Indigenous people either moved away or were moved off the land. Eventually that area over there and extending further north became a rubbish tip and also later a rifle range. This long, thin jetty jutting out into Moreton Bay you've got to watch where you're going. It's very narrow. I wonder how many people have actually fallen into the water here. Here I am at the end of the jetty. What a great spot. Never been here before. There's a Ferris wheel over there. I'm going to turn back now, mainly because, you see, I'm not afraid of heights, I'm afraid of widths. Just as the main Indigenous camp in the Wynnum area was down at the mouth of Wynnum Creek, the main Indigenous camp for the Manly area was located just behind me, now occupied by the Manly Hotel. I'm walking along Collina Street, and a few years ago a bunch of shells were found here. They were grouped in little piles, it seems, concentrations of seashells. That would indicate a feasting area, because the coast is just a K or so away that way, not even that. Where the shells were found, where the midden or middens were, I don't know. It's this side of the road, that side of the road, I don't know. And apparently they're not there anymore. Subsequent rains have washed them away.
In 1860, Thomas Jones bought 250 acres of land for £250 to create a sugar farm. He called the estate Wyvenley. His family had previously established Wyvenhoe Station in the Brisbane Valley, named after Wyvenhoe in Essex in England. A little later, Joseph Luthwaite built the stone Wyvenley House. Later, it changed its name to Tingalpa House, and Tingalpa is apparently an Indigenous name that means House of Fat. In 1882, the Manly Beach Estate was established. This estate was most likely named after Manly in Sydney. Later the name was applied to the surrounding area. In 1884, the Indigenous camp at Eleanora Park was attacked by local ruffians. And the following year, in 1885, the Manly Beach real estate development had an auction on the ground on the 6th of June. Phase 2 was held in 1887. By the time the third phase of the development was advertised in 1890, the railway line had now gone through.
In the year 1886, 3 European women were swimming here in Wynnum Creek, and they ran into difficulties. They began drowning, and coming to their rescue were a small group of Indigenous men, and their names were, I want to get them right, there was Johnny Murray, Tommy Nuggan and Sam. They dived in and pulled the women to shore. And the mouth of Wynnum Creek was at one point the base of the largest fishing fleet in Queensland. I'm standing on the corner of Fox and Glenora. Glenora actually used to be called King Street. That building over there, you can see it's apartment buildings, I think. 1887, that was the site of Hastings Hotel. Later on, it became Fisher's Hotel and was demolished in... that's when it was demolished.
In 1889, the train line came to Manly. This increased the area's popularity as a holiday destination. The area was kind of like the Gold Coast of its day, and just like today, traders feel the financial pinch when the tourists don't show up. In this brief article in the Brisbane Courier from Christmas Eve 1902, it says, "A few weeks ago, the business people of the Wynnum Division were in a state of chronic pessimism, but the division promises to have a larger population than ever during the holidays."
The Waterloo Bay Hotel, it opened in 1889 to coincide with the opening of the railway, which is just down the road that way. My trick knee is playing up, so that must mean I'm near some historical landmark. This is known as the Shire Clerk's Cottage. See, this whole area here was part of the Kawanawha Divisional Board. That was established in 1888. And in 1890, the Shire Clerk's Cottage was built here. And I believe this little cottage is in situ, which means it hasn't been moved. Because you get that a lot with old Queensland buildings, small ones, churches, old houses. You can just pick them up and move them somewhere else as needed. Sometimes it's quite rare to find one still in its original spot, but this is. Oh, you can have a nosy. Ooh. There is Wynnum Central Station. It used to be known as Wynnum South Station. It opened in 1889. The opening of it was reported in the Telegraph newspaper on the 16th of September. The station changed its name to Wynnum Central in 1932. And on the same page there was an advertisement for a new toy called a stubborn donkey. Very amusing, cost 2 shillings. And what would a stubborn donkey toy do? I mean, if it's stubborn, it would just sit there. And it's also a very dangerous train station here. In fact, I think it has the reputation of being the most dangerous train station in all of Queensland. Here's a list of all the accidents and deaths that have occurred here over the years. Wynnum School of Arts opened in 1913. It's been expanded a lot over the years. Beautiful old building. The School of Arts movement began in about the mid-19th century, and it was a way to allow locals to come together to have things like a library or to come and do courses here and to learn and disseminate information, a place for meetings, social gatherings. Unfortunately, you can't really see the view too well because there's a blooming tree right in the way. That was the Mount Carmel Convent. It opened in 1915. When it came up for sale in 2011, the Sisters of Mercy remained tight-lipped as to why they were selling it. Interestingly, that order of sisters took a vow of frowns. And just across the road from the old convent is the Guardian Angels Catholic Church. This was built in 1905. And my hair's going to be very messy. Just come off Berrima Street and I'm looking for the War Memorial, and I think I found it across the road. Well, there's some sort of memorial. I have to go and take a look. Very busy road, this one though. The Green Cross Code, remember it. Actually, I can't remember what it was now. And here it is, in memory of Earl Kitchener, who from this spot reviewed Queensland's troops January the 3rd, 1910. Didn't he later become Lord Kitchener? Anyway, he reviewed the troops and had his sandwiches here. Yeah, there it says Lord Kitchener reviewed the troops from Lytton during the tour of Australia in 1910. The tablet was originally incorporated into a stone cairn and located approximately 60 metres south-east of this position. How's that for a coincidence? I was just talking about the Green Cross Code, and there's Green Street right there. Total coincidence. I'm approaching the intersection of Arnold and Wellington, and it seems that the very last Indigenous camp in the Manly area was right here at the intersection of these two roads. This lasted up until the 1920s. This memorial here was unveiled in 1921. However, it's had a history of vandalism. In 1992, the statue was toppled and the head lopped off. The current statue is a concrete copy of the original one. It was made in 2007. The original one was made out of Italian marble. The original statue was thought lost for a while. However, it turned up in 2017 at a council depot in Lota. And around the back of the memorial, I've just noticed it, is a time capsule just down there in the ground. It says it was buried on the 11th of the 11th, 1995, and will be reopened on the 11th of the 11th, 2045.
Discover the dark heart of the capital of the Sunshine State on the Bloody Brisbane CBD Crime Tour. Visit true crime scenes including the last public execution, the Regent Theatre shootout, the arcade murder, wartime crime, and the lady who vanished. Join me, Jack Sim, and my team of guides to discover Brisbane's criminal history. Book a public or private tour at crimetoursaustralia.com.au.
And that's St Helena Island out there, just in the distance, way over there in Moreton Bay. That was the site of another penal settlement, a prison within a prison. I've always wanted to go out there and film that island and take a look around, make a documentary about that. Does anybody run tours over there anymore? Goals. I'm walking over the Fox Street Bridge. This opened in 1921 and was the cause of great local civic pride and celebration. And on the other side of Wynnum Creek there's a bat colony. And the ibis with its alluring honk. The old Wynnum Central Post Office and Telephone Exchange. This opened in 1923 and it closed in 1994. It's now being used as a funeral office, McCartney Family Funerals. There's also a dentist here.
In 1925, Nazareth House was opened. It was a Catholic benevolent institution primarily for the care of children and orphans. Today it is an aged care facility. However, it had a dreadful reputation for cruelty to children back in the day. A book written about the place was called Remembering Nazareth House. God and the Devil wore robes.
The Manly Baths were open in 1926. The modern Manly Pool is just here, so the baths were probably just about this area here. Apparently council had to steal some of the sand from Lota to help fill out the beach here. And I think it's kind of funny in this photo, you can see a guy wading into the water, however, he's wearing a hat. I mean, who in their right mind would wear a hat while standing in water? Cute little radio-controlled yachts. I feel like getting my radio-controlled battleship and going out there and sinking them. And there's some stairs here. I wonder where they go. They go up. It was in 1928 that the first water reservoir was built up here on Preston Road. We've got three to choose from, three reservoirs. There's the flat one over there, then there's the tall one with the garish colours on it, and then that concretey looking thing over there. And the house that's on site here, that's known as Turncock's Cottage. Today I believe it's just rented out for private use. Just been walking along the Royal Esplanade and up this road here. This is Falcon Street, and ahead of me is an old retaining wall. It's known as the Great Wall of Manly. It was built in 1933 as a unemployment relief project during the Great Depression. The stonework came from a quarry in Lytton. It's not too far away. And apparently there are little sculptures, little carvings of animals embedded within the wall. I don't know whereabouts they are. I'll have a look. Now it comes very narrow here, too fast. Whew. So now I'm up on top of the retaining wall. There's some very nice views of the harbour. This is Green Park. In 1948, there were 9 families living here in tents as a result of the housing shortage crisis after World War II. And it was right up into the 1940s when Green Park was still being referred to as Black's Camp by the locals. The Manly Hotel, it looks like it's closed now for renovations. This opened in 1955 and replaced an earlier venue known as the Canberra Palace. The Manly Boat Harbour opened in 1962, and once the north and south tidal walls were in place, dredgers could come in here and deepen the harbour. And the silt that they dredged up was used to make car parks and also some of the parks around the foreshore of the harbour. Look how low this is. The sign says 1.9 metres. I can virtually reach up and touch the underneath of the railway line. How many cars or trucks have come down here and collided with the bridge? That is the lowest bridge I've ever seen. Look at that. Isn't that incredible?
In 1964, the first clubhouse at Manly for the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron was built on reclaimed land.
I was reading something about these old boats. Some folks were hoping that they could be moved away because they're deteriorating and don't look too good, but apparently they're not blocking navigation in any way. They're privately owned. No one can really just come and take the boats because they don't like the look of them, so they're going to stay here and just slowly rotting away back into the creek. This is Pandanus Beach. It was constructed in 1987 with sand being brought over from North Stradbroke Island to make this beach. It seems that the Wynnum Manly area have a habit of stealing other people's sand. Alrighty, thanks very much for watching this history of the Wynnum and Manly areas. Please consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you're ever down this way, have a meal at the Waterloo Bay Hotel, and when they ask if you would like flies with that meal,